Welcome to the Relaunch Your Career podcast. I am your host, Leah Lambert, career and interview coach and founder of Relaunch Me, where we help you find the work that you were meant to do. Welcome back to the Relaunch Your Career podcast. Today, I have invited Easton Wood to join me to share his career journey after working for 14 years as an elite athlete. For those who don't know Easton, he is a former AFL footballer who played for the Western Bulldogs, known for his athletic intercept-marking and leadership, which culminated in captaining the team to their 2016 Premiership win. After being drafted in 2007, he achieved an All-Australian selection and the Charles Sutton Medal in 2015, before retiring in 2021 after 14 seasons and 188 games. Easton is now working with Hassett, which is a Melbourne-based recruitment consulting firm where he's specialising in accounting and finance recruitment. Quite a change from playing football. Welcome to the podcast, Easton.
Hi, Leah. Thanks a lot for having me and going a bit down memory lane there. It's nice.
Now, I must admit, I used a bit of ChatGPT and Wikipedia. Did I get all of that right?
It was actually very accurate. And I suppose if you're not using ChatGPT now, you're getting left behind. It's pretty handy.
Excellent. Well, let me know if I got anything wrong. You obviously had a very successful career as a footballer, 14 years in total. What did you enjoy most about your career working in football?
Well, I think it's every kid's. Well, it certainly was my dream as a kid to turn sport into a career. I grew up in a small country town in southwest Victoria called Camperdown. People might know Warrnambool. It's down on the way to Warrnambool in the southwest. Small farming town, only 3,000 people, and for me, winter was football and summer was cricket, and that suited me absolutely perfectly. I was sport obsessed and just loved running around with my friends. And I think when you look back at that team sport, it's all you're making so many memories together with friends, and there's no effort to actually you have to go to. The older I get, the more I realize how much effort you have to go to make memories with friends. And that's what I loved about, my professional career. I got drafted, I think 2 weeks after my school exams. I was drafted and I walked into the football club. So it was all I'd ever really known. And, it was special from day one. It was hard from day one, and it was hard most days. But I think that challenge and the pressure and the stress and the purpose is what makes it special. And when you're doing that within a team environment, and you do make some pretty incredible bonds and memories throughout that. I can't believe it was 14 years throughout that throughout that journey.
You mentioned it being hard. Like, I think some of what people sometimes don't understand about football clubs, that it is obviously a high performance culture, but it's not just on the field, it's also off the field. There's very high standards. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that for someone who's not familiar with how a football club operates?
Well, I think, so in terms of the performance aspect, obviously you're judged on your performance every weekend over that 2-hour period and what you produce, and stress comes from where the expectation level is at, of where you sit with your own performance. So anytime you're not meeting that level of expectation, that's inherently stressful. But I think that even when you exceed that expectation and you play very well, you've got to do it again next week, and you've got to do it again the week after, and you've got to do it at training, and you've got to do it the following week when you've had a corky and you're only at, you can hardly move your leg, or when you've got a busted ankle, or when you've got a virus, or there's no, it's not a challenge to perform well once, it's a challenge to perform at a high level and sustain that over an extended period, despite the things that happen throughout your life and throughout very high kinetic and collision sport. Your body is never at 100%, no matter how well you prepare and train. That's where sports medicine comes in. It's wonderful. It can take some pain away. It can't take it all away. It can get you to a certain level. But I think, as our career kind of progressed, and as the science progressed, particularly from the mental side of things, we started to develop better strategies and I suppose a toolkit to deal with pressure, stress, anxiety, whereas at the beginning of my career, it was all just about hard work. The harder you work, the better you'll be. And if you are feeling stressed or under pressure or not at your best, don't say anything, just persevere and, grit your teeth and kind of get through it, which I think over my career, it was nice to see that shift and that understanding kind of change and evolve over time. But yeah, that performance pressure it's always there. The lingers no matter how well you play, it's always next week. But the great thing is if you don't play well, there's always next week to turn it around as well. So yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Apart from, I guess, that relentless pressure every week after week, are there any other negative aspects to the job that you don't miss?
I don't miss being in pain, and I don't miss having to. If you're going to have any improvement in athletic performance, you have to take yourself past the edge consistently within your training. So that means if it's in the gym, it's consistently maxing out your reps, which is hard. In an aerobic environment, it's getting higher volume, and yeah, taking yourself past where you think you can go. And that's just inherently uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable all the time, every training session. But if you're not, who was it? I think it was Matthew Boyd. One of his favorite quotes was, "If you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space." And it was a really interesting, mindset. But if you're not getting to the edge of your physical performance, then you're not adapting. So you're wasting training. The whole reason why you train is to get better. So, and it always comes down to, well, it did for me, and it materialized as I got a little bit older as, well, why am I doing what am I doing? And becomes this ownership piece of, okay, well, I'm training. I'm not doing it to tick the box because the coach told me to, or because because the high performance manager thinks this is a good idea. I'm doing this to get better at either my aerobic capacity, my ability to change direction, my ability to do repeat efforts. So on Saturday, Friday, or Sunday when we play, I can be at the absolute peak of my physical capacity and performance to give myself the best chance to perform as well as I possibly can.
Interesting. Can I take you back to senior high school? I know you're a country boy. I think you went to Geelong Grammar. I'm curious, was there ever a backup plan if you weren't drafted, or was it always focusing on footy?
Actually, quite almost the opposite. I thought my professional football career was over when I was 15. So the traditional pathway through to AFL is through the TAC Cup, and my region was the Geelong Falcons. So obviously that's the talent pathway, and that's a team that is a part of that. If you play within that competition, that's where the scouts come and watch. I tried out for the under 15 side of that, and I got cut. I didn't make the team. So I thought, well, only two or three get drafted from that every year. If I can't even make the team, that's my journey over effectively. But I was very fortunate that for year 11 and 12, I got a sports scholarship to go to Geelong Grammar, which was a very large shift from a small little Camperdown high school to quite eye-opening. But within playing in that competition, all of the TAC Cup players would have to play for their school, so they'd miss their TAC Cup games. So that meant the scouts were coming to watch them. So I was playing against Sil Rioli, Lockie Henderson, who was a top 10 draft pick from my year, who went to Brisbane and later Carlton and then Geelong. So there's a lot of great talent in the APS system, and I was quite fortunate that I played well enough that they decided to have a look at me, and the Bulldogs drafted me from just playing the school football. So I missed out on all of that pathway stuff. But because of that long-winded way of getting to say, was there a backup, I wanted to try and combine academics and sport so I could stay in sport. So I wanted to be a physiotherapist.
Hmm.
So I studied hard at school and I got into physiotherapy, but it was difficult because I got drafted. Yeah. And 2 weeks later, I was at the footy club. So trying to balance the two was a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, probably not the easiest degree to complete while working as a full-time footballer.
No.
I understand your career came to an end during 21. Was this a premature end due to injury, or were you sort of coming to the end of your career anyhow?
It's interesting. So, there's a couple of ways to look at it. I think the end comes an unexpected time. I think everyone wants it to go longer. I certainly wished it had gone longer. I think any athlete who's competitive wants to go as long as they can. I did have another year to run on my contract, which I gave back because I simply felt that I'd played for 14 years in the absence of any doubt in my mind. And I think that once doubt crept in about my ability to perform and my ability to stay healthy, I felt disingenuous and I felt like I couldn't be all in. And as soon as I realized that that seed had been planted, I was like, I can't knowingly commit and give everything that, football demands and deserves. So I decided to retire, and that was through injury. So I had persistent hamstring injuries. I did 3 hamstring tears in my last season. I did 20 overall over my 14 years, and I started to sit back and think, what's that definition of insanity? You do the do the same thing and expect a different response. I thought, I'm here. I'm 33. I'm getting older. Older players don't get healthier. Their hamstrings don't get better. I thought, look, if this doubt's here, I may as well call it. Yeah, I think I was fortunate as well that I felt like I was on bonus time anyway. I didn't think I was going to play for as long as I did. I certainly didn't think we'd win a premiership, and I would have achieved some of the things I did. So I felt pretty content, yeah, to pull the pin.
Okay. And so when you finished, did you have a career, like a plan B career? Had you been sort of working on that with your player development manager at the club? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I did. So if we go back to the physio degree, I did that I deferred for the first year just so I could learn as an 18-year-old, one, how to be an adult, and two, how to be a professional athlete. That was enough on my plate rather than starting university as well. So my second year, I started my physio degree, but this was before any remote learning side of things. So this was at Bundoora. Lectures were in person 3 days a week, and the reality of doing only two subjects, but trying to get out to Bundoora and back to training was impossible. I passed those 2 subjects by the skin of my teeth, and I thought, this is only going to get harder, not going to get easier. So I decided to get out of the physio degree, and I moved to Vic Uni to do a Bachelor of Sports Science, so a less intensive degree, and it was based at Footscray, so much closer. And yeah, I chipped away at that for 8 years and completed that degree. But unfortunately, out of that 8 years of study, all I learned was that out of sports science was I didn't want anything to do with sports science. So I'm not sure it was the most valuable use of my time. So really, I kind of finished my career with a clear picture of what I didn't want to do and had very little idea of what I did want to do. So it was inherently clear to me that I didn't want to work on weekends anymore. And I wanted to get a bit of space from football so I could go away, learn new skills. And if I felt the call to come back, I could come back with, fresh ideas, new relationships, and be able to maybe have a different lens to come back with. But at this stage, I don't have that pull or calling it. I've very much enjoyed the transition into corporate life, having weekends back, and shifting into that next phase.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like there are a lot of players that choose to stay in football, and then other players that I've worked with just want to get away as far away from it as possible, and absolutely have their weekends back, because even as a coach, or there's a lot of roles in the clubs where you're still required to be at games.
Absolutely, and that was the realization. I thought, well, if I'm going to do anything in football or media, then that will require all weekends, and it'll also require, even as a coach, football does kind of consume your life for that period. It is being such a high performance environment. It demands ultimate, I suppose, investment in that element, and I just felt that I had a I needed to move away from that. I needed a bit of breathing space. I was incredibly appreciative, and I absolutely adored my journey there. But the reality of that performance pressure, I needed to decompress and unwind from that element. So I took, actually, my wife and I, we moved to Bali for 6 months in 2022, just unwind, reconnect. It was off the back of COVID. Melbourne had become a bit of our house was quite small. It was a single fronted place. It was only 160 square metres, so it had become a bit of a prison, to be fair. In the peak of those lockdowns, we had 2 kids under 2, which was a challenge through COVID, and we thought, no, let's get out and explore and try and reconnect a bit. And that was a good bit of time to decompress and unwind and start to really materialise, okay, well, what is next? What does it look like? What do we value? And what are the options? Because albeit understanding, okay, I want to do something corporate, I had absolutely no idea what even what jobs were. What is a business development manager? What do they do? What do they manage? How do you develop business? And so that then started my journey of connecting with peers and trying to understand a bit more about the corporate landscape and trying to see what my skill set and personality would kind of align to and what options were actually, there.
So you've landed in recruitment, which having worked in recruitment, doing the same role many years ago, I can see there's a lot of parallels. It's very team-based, it's very relationship-based. You also have that pressure of meeting KPIs every month. So there's a lot of similarities there. What other skills do you believe you've been able to transfer from your AFL football career into recruitment?
I think what I do really like about the move into recruitment, it does follow a lot of the same beats as football, particularly the bipolar nature of it, because it's all commission based and as well as an outcome based. Football is all outcome based as well. And if you get on the roller coaster, so you have a great win, and then all of a sudden you think you're going to win the premiership, and then you lose the next week, and then all of a sudden the paper's saying, you're the worst team ever, you're pretenders, you're all this. It's just you'll burn yourself out. And I think I like that recruitment's very similar, that sometimes you can just get lucky and find the best candidate and have the right profile. And then other times you can do a month's work, you've worked really hard, you've run absolute fantastic process, you've ticked all the boxes, and then the candidate decides on day one that they've received a counter offer or they want to take another job, and you're like, well, you're completely out of control. So I think that element of, you're never going as well as you think you are, and you're never going as bad as you think you are, and that operating in between is something really comfortable in that rhythm, and owning the process and kind of being less consumed by the outcome, albeit the outcome drives everything still, but just not letting that dictate mood and dictate how you view your performance all the time.
Yeah, that's a very good description. And I'm smiling because, when I worked with your boss, Dave Hassett,
Yeah.
we used to call it 0 to 0. So,
Oh, yeah.
1 minute you're absolutely flying, and the next,
Yeah.
as you said, someone changes their mind at the last minute, they get a counter offer, and everything that you sort of thought that you had, in your that you'd build for the month suddenly disappears. So you definitely have to be able to ride those highs
Yeah.
and lows. Yeah, very similar
So
to football.
we've heard it here in the industry, champagne and razor blades. It's just one of those, you're either probably a bit of a dark description of it, but it is, and it can be, a minute in between though, but having both of those experiences, it's pretty crazy, but it's good. It keeps you on the edge, and I'm a process person, so I like being able to control process and then give yourself the best opportunity for the best outcome, albeit that they don't always occur as the way you think they will.
Just going back a little bit, Easton. So I often talk when I work with players, particularly AFL footballers, the importance of testing and experimenting and trying different things because, I believe it's the action that gives you the clarity rather than just thinking about different careers. I'm interested before you even landed in recruitment, did you undertake some career experiments and try different things before you ended up working at Hassett?
Yeah, I did. My wife runs her own marketing agency, so I did a small internship with her for how long was it for? 6 weeks, maybe a couple of days for 6 weeks. And it was more just to sit in a corporate environment and just to, have to write an email and have to understand what that's like, and even get a bit more of an understanding about marketing and how even just how a small business can run. So that was good fun. But the reality of my wife and I working together, we thought, no, I think the I think the space is required. This is not something that can be long term. But it was really nice. It's particularly nice to see her in her element and dominating, which is really cool. But I think what I did without knowing, when I didn't know what opportunities were there, was one thing that was really pleasing was I reached out to a large number of people in my network, and pleasingly, not one person was too busy for a coffee. It might have taken, 2, 3 or 4 weeks to find a time, but every person I reached out to made the time, which was, I think, upon reflection, really, really special that they're willing to do that. And through those conversations, I even shadowed one of my friends to work who's in the construction industry, and he delivers, construction materials to different sites. It was just nice to get views of how different elements of different industries, and see how that was all relationship based as well. And just try and get an understanding of what people do and how they do it, and what they thought I might be able to do, or people within their network they thought I should have a coffee with. And that's how this opportunity with Hassett arrived. One of my good friends is in business development, and I caught up with him because I was thinking that was the pathway I was going to go down. It's all relationship based. If I've got a good network of people I'm connected with, so that can be beneficial in that space. And he said, "Yeah, look, you do, but you need to be much more specific in what industry you're targeting and what specifically you're offering." And he said, "Look, catch up with my friend who's a recruiter in this space, lovely guy, and he'll be able to give you much more some advice that you need to help narrow your focus." And yeah, it was luckily he was that was Rory Doran, who's the director of sales and marketing here at Hassett, and he halfway through our conversation, he said, "Look, what you're describing." What you're looking for is not too dissimilar to recruitment. It's also relationship based. It'll give you a really broad sense of the corporate space. His line was, we go a mile wide, but 3 inches deep. So you get a really good exposure to a large number of different businesses, different roles, and you understand the functions of different teams. And he said that could be a really good starting point for you to dip your toe in the water. And fortunately, I met the rest of the team, and there was an opportunity available in accounting and finance. I had no background in accounting and finance, so I've kind of fallen into that. But yeah, been a steep learning curve. But I think what's been nice for me is realizing that there is obviously the technical aspect of understanding what roles do and how they do it. That's taken a bit of time to learn, but it does always seem to come back to, over if it's the business development side, it's the relationship, or if it's the hiring side, it's how this person is going to fit with the hiring manager and the broader team. And I think that's where I've been able to add some value, some insights there, and really enjoy connecting people, which has been great fun.
Have there been any surprises for you moving into corporate?
Any surprises? I did have to have a pretty steep learning curve of how to write an email properly, get out of slang and texting. And I was hopeless with emails at the footy club because I didn't have a computer. I'd never really checked my emails at all. So that has been good. And I think the surprise was, just how relationship based business is. It really does come back to whether people can that trust element, and whether, are you going to do what you say you're going to do in the time you say you're going to do it, and can you be reliable and consistent in that approach? And I feel like that's where, building those relationships over time and consistently performing in that manner, you can really add value and really create a strong relationship. And what I enjoy too is those relationships turn into friends as well, which has been, the same as football, which is really, really great. Spending time together and going through different processes, and becoming close has been really, really, really enjoyable.
I know football clubs, we sort of touched on it before, but my husband, I don't know if you know, has been with the football club for 21 years as a physio. So he's missed one game in 21 years. So I'm
Wow.
sure your wife will be very appreciative that you've got
Yes.
to recruitment. But football clubs, like they're very structured. Like you have to be at work on time. There's no, just turning up 10 minutes late or nicking out for a coffee in the middle of the day. They tell you what to wear every day. They tell you what to eat every day. They tell you, everything. How has that been? Like, because obviously with recruitment, you have to be quite motivated and also, work quite independently. Has that been a big adjustment when you first went from football into recruitment?
I think it might have been if I had to transition earlier in my career when I was probably a little bit more happily led and being told what to do, and, it was someone else's responsibility to organise all these other different things. But I think the turning point for me in my football career was actually questioning why we did things, and therefore then taking ownership of what that outcome was going to be. It was my responsibility of how well I was training, what the training program was. I wasn't just accepting what was in my weights program. I'm like, why is this the best exercise to do? I'm trying to achieve this outcome on the field. How can we build the program so we can do that? And once we started to have that kind of extreme ownership in that space, and we tried to drive that throughout the team, and I think it's a key turning point in a lot of players' careers when they really do take full ownership of the outcome of their career. And I think being within that, what it meant was I was inherently self-motivated, and I think that's probably helped, as you described then, moving into recruitment. It's, are you gonna make you've got the day, you're gonna make one call, or you're gonna make, 20 or 30, and it's all self-driven. And sometimes you're running a process, you've got a good candidate, and you can go, well, I've got one good candidate. Am I going to put the queue in the rack, or am I going to actually keep searching and make sure I've got the best that's available in the market, and do the extra work because what if that candidate pulls out of, as we discussed before, finds a better offer or gets a counter offer? It is about that. Yeah, what I like, running that full process. And if something does happen and I go back, well, could I have actually done anything differently? And then sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no, and you go, well, you have to kind of live with that outcome. So I think, yeah, that's actually been something I've enjoyed, being in a bit of control, having a bit more freedom. Certainly being able to, we've got young kids, so the having flexible work, being able to work from home has really helped with school pickups and daycare drop-offs and pickups, and that whole logistical nightmare with two full-time working parents. So it's if it certainly wouldn't be possible if I was still working in the football system with the way our family is structured at the moment.
Yeah. And just before we sort of finish up, I'm interested in what would your advice be for current AFL footballers who might be contemplating life after football? What would you tell them to do based on your experience?
I would say reach out to your network and be curious. I think every conversation I had, and as I said before, every person I reached out to, not one was too busy, which was really heartwarming, and actually you felt really, really supported. And I think even if you think it's something that you're not interested, understanding more about that industry or about that role, it just helped started to put puzzle pieces in place for me about how things worked, but also refine what I wanted to do by understanding what I didn't want to do. And I think that was really important. And although I felt unprepared coming out because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I just knew what I didn't want to do. But that actually helped to narrow it significantly, because the overwhelming part as well when I finished was, well, okay, I can do anything. But then the reality of, well, shit, what's that actually going to be? There's so many different things. How do you start to, to pull it back? And, some guys have a really clear picture of what they want to do and have done, the whole way through. But like me, I was a little bit more unsure. So I think it is that, just be curious, have those conversations, go along with a mate to work. If anything, it'll be a good fun day, and something you still remember and have a laugh about. But I found that really, really, really beneficial in my transition.
Yeah, great advice. I think, being curious, but secondly, like you said, not being afraid to ask people for a
Yeah.
coffee or for a 10-minute chat, or even to job shadow them for a day, is the best career experiment you can do, in my opinion.
Couldn't agree more.
Excellent. Well, look, it's been great to chat with you. Really, congratulations on a successful career move into recruitment. It sounds like it's going really well. And
Leah.
yeah, really appreciate you coming on the show today, Easton.
No worries, Leah. Thanks so much for having me.
That's great. Have a good week.
Oh, you too.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Relaunch Your Career. If you did, please subscribe, share with your friends, leave a review, or connect with us on social media at Relaunch Me Career Consulting. If you have any questions about the episode or the work that we do, then contact us via the website relaunchme.com.au. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.